G'day guys, Friday, November 21st. Today's update, we're just going to talk about the current Cyclone Fina and possible storms for other parts of the country, but the focus will be in the north because with this cyclone, while it's in place, it will block that northwest to southeast flow through the interior, which will have flow-on effects for southeastern Australia, who is still waiting for rain. So we've got Cyclone Fina here, still Cat 1. It downgraded overnight from a Category 2. It's expected to increase to a Category 2 again, moving through the Cobourg Peninsula towards the Diemen Gulf, and then possibly intensifying to a Category 3 in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. Future tracks, you'll remember if you watched the video from the other day, I said that there's likely that this system can go down towards the Mitchell Plateau if it doesn't cross in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. So the latest track map from the bomb does actually bring that track now in as a Category 1, or from a Category 2 to a tropical low towards the Mitchell Plateau by the 25th. And we know that this high energy period runs from the 19th till the 24th. So it's right within that window where it formed on the 19th, and it's making landfall one day later on the 25th after the 24th. So very interesting to see. And it's interesting to see that also on the 24th, when energy peaks, is when we get that key intensification phase, if it all happens. But that'll be pretty much when it occurs. So once that energy period ends, we'll see the system lose intensity quite quickly just due to the mechanics that are involved in this particular high energy period. So yeah, that's the latest track. We can't really say much else on that. It's going towards where I suggested, the Mitchell Plateau. So that's all on track, and even the dates are within the high energy period as well. So Category 2, I'll post the wind risks and that separately in a few snapshots with this video. But yeah, so those from the top end, we'll see these convergence zones where these winds wrap around into the southern edge of the cyclone. So you see where those storms are banding through the northern parts of the top end. That's where the winds converge to a point. It's like putting your thumb over a hose, and where that pressure builds, we get a lot of uplift from the surface, and that's where your thunderstorms build within the cyclone. So there your heavy rain bands. Forecasts are showing 1 to 200 mils, but we know these systems, you can see, and even just from the other day when this was a tropical low, we saw 200 mils in similar places along this northwest coast of the top end within about 4 or 5 hours. So being up so far north in the equatorial belt, it's likely to see 2 to 500 mils accumulated falls easily as this system tracks along through the coastal areas of the Northern Territory towards the Kimberley coast. So it should remain highly coastal. There'll be grazing effects of damaging winds, destructive winds for the far coastal regions of the top end. So through the Darwin region, they'll be on cyclone alert. Same with the Tiwi Islands. But once that system moves offshore, being such a small system, those risks will break down quite quickly. And so will the rain. The rain won't penetrate inland very far. You can see over in the Gulf here, a larger system will bring rain right in through the eastern Gulf of the Northern Territory, where we're only seeing some scattered storms at the moment. It just shows how small the system is. And there's only a small eye, very tight, very compact. This allows it to intensify quickly, but it also allows it to lose its intensity just as fast as well. So that's why there'll be fluctuations in the storm as it moves forward. Looking at the national satellite outside of the northern tropics, so that frontal system that was moving through Western Australia over the last few days is now pushing through South Australia. And something I mentioned in the last update too was that any rainfall with this frontal system and storm phase will be highly coastal to the coastal ranges and coastal districts of South Australia. And you can see that the rain, while there's some good thunderstorms there's not a lot of rain falling on the ground. And that's been the case further east in New South Wales over the last few days as well, and even parts of inland Queensland, where like these thunderstorms that are occurring across the northwest slopes and plains and places into eastern New South Wales, we're only seeing 5 to 10 mils. It's isolated pockets to 20, but it just shows how limited amount of moisture is in the atmosphere for this time of year. And this is a key reason why we stuck to that dry forecast into the eastern states specifically. But once these systems move across the West Australian interior, they're drying out quite quickly through South Australia. And with that tropical low to the north, it's cutting off that moisture flow from the north. So that's why these storms through South Australia are decaying so fast. If we had that northwest flow attached to it, like we did in late October, you'd see these thunderstorms would extend right up through the Northern Territory. But that tropical lows essentially put a dry air blanket across the northern interior, where these outflows lie through into the Gulf country. And through the interior, it's very, very hot. There's heatwave warnings right through the interior into Queensland for the next few days because of that. So this cyclone is the defining factor on whether we see more rain into the southeast or the general east in general into the end of the month. The further west this system goes, the less likely we're going to see rainfall extending across the interior. And being such a small system, it won't hold a lot of gravy for the ground anyway. So I wouldn't be hopeful on this bringing anything meaningful into the southeast at this rate of knots. And with the major cycle for November now, it's just about over from when this crosses the coast around the 24th. We'll probably see moisture dry out again moving into December. November was meant to be the wettest month of spring. So this is water vapour. We'll just have a quick look at this. And this shows this dry air boundary that's being held across the northern interior by Cyclone Fina. And due to that, we're not seeing that moisture penetrating down in the southeast. So you can see the frontal system moving through. That was forecast to form around the 19th. Has formed, but due to the cyclone to the north, it's not able to tap into that northwest flow that we've seen over the last few weeks. So again, this is the reason why we're not seeing that transport of moisture further south. But yeah, so it's always important to see these images. So traditionally you'd see the frontal system come through Western Australia or the Great Australian Bight, trough extending up through the Western Australian interior this time of year, where you get those high base storms. And as that trough forms, moisture's pulled in from the Indian Ocean, Timor Sea, those sorts of places, pretty much following this banding cloud. And the two interact, link up, and you get those northwest cloud bands that move right in through the northern interior, Queensland, New South Wales, and sometimes parts of South Australia and Victoria. So that was what I was forecasting initially. So we have the front forming, but the cyclone, because it intensified, it changed the whole dynamics and took all the energy from the south to the north. So yeah, it's something that I've noted in my work, and yeah, we know what's wrong now for the next time it comes around. But it's interesting to see though how these systems still turn on and off during these high energy periods, which is the focus of what we're trying to research and develop. So we'll have a look at the rainfall models next, just through to the early parts of next week. Because of this cyclone, there will be a lot of variability, so we won't go very far ahead, and that might be frustrating, but it is what it is. So this is the ECMWF rainfall outlook from today, Friday the 21st, into next week. We'll go through the whole thing, but just know beyond a few days, there's likely to be a bit of variability. So don't shoot the messenger with these rainfall prospects, because again, Cyclone Fina will dramatically change how any moisture comes in from the northwest into the southeast. So it will have a drying trend until it crosses the coast and moves inland. So just be aware of that. So we have this front moving through the Great Australian Bight, southern parts of South Australia. We know that a lot of that rain is going to be highly coastal and very patchy. And we saw that on the satellite loop, that those storms were only producing 5 to 10 mils. While they look good on satellite, there's probably not a lot in them, and that's due to this dry air coming in from the northwest. There's potential for some hail where this dry air boundary interacts with the cooler air from the south, but it'll just be small hail, more so just some gusty winds and those sorts of things. Not a lot of rain there, and that'll progress through in eastern South Australia and parts of Victoria into the weekend. And those storms that are occurring at the moment through eastern New South Wales and marginal parts of southern Queensland, like I was saying the other day, they'll generate some hail just due to the limited moisture and the dynamics at the time. And we're seeing a lot of hail through northern parts of New South Wales, up around Narrabri and those places into the northwest slopes and plains. This area will pick up in activity over the weekend. It'll look impressive, but it won't be. Rainfall potential increases, but it's still storms, and they'll still be patchy, and they'll come through in thin waves like they have been in the last few days. So unless you're right under one, you won't get much. And even still, due to the speed that they're travelling, you probably still won't get much. Then to the north, we have the tropical cyclone Fina. So the bulk of the rain, again, will be in the north. Anywhere on the northwest coast of the top end from the Arnhem and Darwin Daly district border south to the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, where the border is there, Western Australia, that coastal region can expect anywhere from 100 to 500 mils, probably more in those isolated convergence zones. So highly coastal, very small system, extreme rain, gusty winds. I wouldn't be going overboard with winds due to the size of the system and the fact that it's staying offshore. It'll just be those convergence rainfall bands that come in along the coast. So those Darwin people, they're well versed in these type of rain events. It'd be nothing out of the ordinary, really. And being such a small system, and it's forecast to move pretty quick too, so it won't have lasting effects. But then when the system crosses the coast around that Mitchell Plateau, we should see that low cyclone wash out into a low. We'll get a bit more of a distribution of rain through the northern Kimberley there before it shears into the interior. So moving into Saturday, you'll see that front through South Australia continues its track through the Southern Eyre Peninsula, western, southwestern regions of the Mount Lofty Ranges, Adelaide Hills and those areas. Inland, Murraylands, Riverlands, no rain, possibly some patchy showers and storms for the southeast moving into Western Victoria. There's another front moving on shore for southwestern Western Australia. So anywhere south of the wheat belt through to the Esperance coast, we're looking at, 5 to 30, 5 to 50 mils. Again, might be some patchy hail within this. There's a bit of an upper trough coming in over the top of this with this hot, dry northerly coming in from the Pilbara. So where we get this moisture interaction and the temperature interaction, we should see a lot of instability and hail risk. So just be planning on that if you're doing your crops this time of year. I know a lot of you guys are trying to do some harvesting and whatnot. So just pay attention to the satellite and radar as you're operating. And you'll see again on Saturday those storms sticking up through the northwest slopes and plains, central west slopes and plains, and they'll shift across into the tablelands and eventually to the east coast. But the bulk of the rain will be in the ranges there, the slopes and plains. So yeah, not a lot of distribution there either. Into Sunday, that frontal system that developed off the west coast the other day moves out into the Tasman. So as it moves offshore, models suggest that we'll get a deepening low, which will be favourable for eastern Gippsland. So they do the best with the onshore flow from the Tasman. And this is showing there's anywhere from 5 to 20 plus mils, possibly higher for east and southern Gippsland, up into the southern parts of New South Wales, southwest slopes, the Illawarra, and then up through the Hunter Coast, northwest slopes and plains again into the Darling Downs and the Wide Bay. So generally patchy storms. The further north you go from the low, those storms will become drier and more isolated. But again, very, very hit and miss. The focus of rain will be that eastern Victoria, far southern New South Wales coast. The front moving through the Bight, it sort of clears off pretty quickly, and those showers and storms move out towards the Great Australian Bight by Sunday night. Monday morning. Then in the north, we've got Tropical Cyclone Fina. It's now likely to be in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. Again, a lot of that rain, you can see by this model here, the rain's highly, highly coastal, not pushing inland very far. The coastal districts, 1 to 300 mils, inland dropping off to about 5 to 10 quite quickly, considering it's a tropical feature. So this particular model run brings us into the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, but I would favour the access model where it actually follows the track map, which is the access, and crosses around that Mitchell Plateau mark that I suggested the other day. So that's how I'd interpret the northern system. So if we go into Monday the 24th, so the high energy period ends on the 24th, you'll find that this system is now quite close to the coast on the 24th. So essentially we'd call that landfall because we've gone from a Cat 2 down to pretty much a washed out trough. So it'd be interesting to see what happens here if the system's just sort of absorbed into the inland regions or if it actually crosses the coast as an actual circulation. But you can see the rain in its wake. We're only looking at 5 to 10 mils for parts of the Northern Territory and highly coastal for the northern parts of the Kimberley with that feature there too. So, and then down to the south, generally clear in the southwest, might be some gusty winds for the southwest coast. Very, very patchy storms for Western Victoria. I'll be doubtful there's any rainfall in that. And that's due to this low pressure system. It'll pull all the moisture offshore. And any storms remaining in eastern parts of the southeast, again, highly sporadic, highly hit and miss, possibly 5 to 20 mils, and likely to have some hail embedded within those. So not a lot of rain anywhere outside of the Northern Territory moving into the 25th. We'll see that low in the north. I'll zoom in again. The low in the north is now all but moved on shore here. If we zoom out, there's the low there. Just sort of hovering off the coast before it makes a recurve and moves in. So the ECMWF takes it out further to the west. However, it should move on shore as indicated by the Australian access model. But generally clear in the wake of that system. Patchy storms up through inland Queensland, right through central Queensland, mostly confined to southeast Queensland in those typical zones there, and some more widespread activity moving through the eastern Riverina into the slopes and plains of New South Wales. Generally cool and patchy across Victoria with this frontal system moving in from the south. And that'll just bring a cool change, and that sort of helps trigger those thunderstorms too. So This is the sort of rainfall pattern we were looking for from the 19th to the 24th. Obviously more widespread than this though. And the reason it's not connected to that feature is just purely because that cyclone's in place. So if that cyclone wasn't there, we'd see this trough and arch of storms extending right back up to the Kimberley. So you can thank FINA for any disruptions with rainfall in the interior of the country. Moving into Thursday, again, generally clearing in the southeast and storms moving up into the northeast of Queensland. So anywhere from the Wide Bay north up towards the North Tropical Coast, Northern Goldfields, the Gulf, parts of the northwest and into the central interior. These storms through the central interior, these will be the remnants of FINA. And you can see there's not a lot of moisture embedded within that due to how hot and dry it's been through there. So over the days preceding this rain, there'll be heat wave warnings. So a lot of the moisture that's in the atmosphere will be completely dispersed and limiting rainfall potential. So that pretty much sums up the week ahead. Not a lot of activity. All the interest will be the Northern Territory and some patchy storms around the east coast, clearing in the west, southwest, and south and southeast. This is accumulated precip from today, the 21st, into the end of the month. So this is the 30th. So again, use this very, very cautiously. I'm just showing the distribution of rain to see the trends that are forming rather than how much rainfall on the ground. We know that this rain through the eastern states, there is potential for these type of accumulations, but they won't be this widely distributed on the ground. There'll be some good storms, but there'll be a lot of ground in between them that doesn't see that sort of rainfall. And this rain across the southern coast will, outside of the southwest, will be highly, highly coastal and probably even less than shown. And that goes for Victoria as well. A lot of this rain for Victoria is probably going to be less than shown outside of east Gippsland, providing that low forms, we get that onshore flow. So there's just a few caveats there. And any rainfall potential will actually increase up into the north just due to this wet season influence that will start to be building. So there's naturally going to be more humidity. But you'll see that dry air boundary that we saw in the water vapour is pretty much where this moisture cutoff is outside of this central interior rain, which is the ex-FINA rainfall. And that's due to FINA's involvement up towards the Arafura Sea there at the moment. So with that in mind, we can compare it to the other models. We have very similar rainfall projections and distributions, which is good to see. It shows that the models are all agreeing on this is what's going to happen. Notice the GFS isn't as bullish on rainfall compared to the ECMWF, and I'd actually be agreeing with that, and probably even less than what's shown. And the focus of rain is up through the northeast, which I would agree with as well. And you can see there's only clusters of heavy rainfall. This is where those severe storms should form. But even these will be probably slightly less than, this is showing 50 to 100 mils. Probably back off on that a bit due to this cyclone's interaction to the northwest. And then the Australian model, it's more conservative where it's usually over bullish. So I'd be using probably these sort of totals in the northeast. GFS in the southeast, probably less. And the access for the southwest and to some extent the northwest where the tropical cyclones impacting the region. They're all in pretty good agreement with rain for the northwest. So, the models only go up to 300. So they're probably going to see more rainfall than that anyway. Again, highly coastal. But that's good to see that we have that sort of agreement moving forward. Just note that have a less is more approach with the models. Don't get fooled by these forecasts saying these super wet periods are going to happen. There's someone online telling me now that there's going to be this super wet event that goes on for the next 3 years. It's all bullshit. Don't buy into it. It's just not how it works. So don't worry about that. Particularly the southeast, we're moving out that drying trend, and that should transpire into 2026. So, like I've been saying, make the most of the rain you get because it might be the last. And unfortunately, a lot of that rain didn't even come anyway. So it just shows why I kept saying plan for a dry end to the year moving into 2026. This is the CFS weekly anomalies. What's interesting in this is we're going to see this transition from what has been comparably wetter for November compared to the last 2 months before that. We'll see that break down into that dry outlook into December. There are some discrepancies here because I do expect another tropical low to form up here in the northwest from early December. And also we should see some storm events for eastern parts of Australia into week 4, and the same with the western parts into week 3, week 4, if there's a tropical system that crosses the coast. So Outside of that, you'll see with these models that we'll go into a much drier outlook for December, and that's sort of the key takeaway of what I'm trying to get to. So 19th till 24th was the peak energy period for November. So once that finishes, we'll see some remnant storms moving through the interior. This will be the remnants of Fina moving in, and those storms moving up through northeast Queensland. This model's showing an anomaly out here. This could be a tropical low that forms again in the early parts of December. However, I wouldn't be surprised if we see another one out here in the Indian Ocean, just due to the water temperatures a bit more favourable. And if we don't, though, I do have a forecast for there's actually 3 areas of interest for December within this next high energy period coming after this. So just pay attention to the oceans again. Moving into week 2 of December, we'll see nationally below average rainfall potential, and that'll be the case moving into week 3. And then we should see some rainfall pick up in the west. So if this tropical system forms out in the Indian Ocean, we should see some rainfall anomalies for the Pilbara by about mid-month, and they should pile into the southwest moving into week 4. And then as that's happening, we should see moisture increasing for the north through the Gulf. There'll be more so humidity than rain. It'll be heat and humidity, and that'll be a primer for storms moving into week 4 prior to Christmas. So these storm images here, I would expect these to be slightly more widespread than shown. But again, we may not see rainfall above the average purely due to the month being dry previous to this period. We're moving into the end of December now. And again, we're seeing generally average rain in the west. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some higher anomalies in the west compared to what's shown here. But generally, again, the trend is for dry in the southeast. So just pay attention to that. And moving into the new year, we should see this dry anomaly to the north should actually turn wet from about the 31st of December into the first week of January. We'll see a broad tropical low established across the tropical north and pretty boring down south. So this is almost in reverse, in my opinion, where this dry anomaly here should be a wet anomaly. This is the monthly. So December is showing generally a drier than average month ahead. This is the CFS, especially in the southeast. So we need to keep monitoring this, because moving into March, providing this trend holds true, is going to be the peak of this heat and dry phase for the summertime. And this tells me that there might be some very late season high fire danger periods coming into March, as we see some tropical events in the north and we see these high temperatures and dry conditions in the southeast. So just be mindful of this, keep monitoring it. I don't expect it to change. I'm not confident that this is something to be paying attention to. This is that wet anomaly I'm talking about, though, for the first week of January with that broad tropical low. And then in the week 4 of January, that next tropical low forms in the Gulf, which brings rain in northeast Queensland. And that's what's going to follow into February to cross down here near the Wide Bay. So that's the system here. So we'll get another low late January, generally dry in the west. There might be a tropical low there, but the focus will be the northeast, and that'll track parallel to the coast, crossing around the Wide Bay, so slightly further south than shown here, and that'll go into southeast Queensland, northeast New South Wales. So pay attention to that one. Then into March, we should just see a bit of a cloud band through northeast Queensland and a tropical low moving down through to around 80 Mile Beach. Check out the March forecast for that. And then April again, the major feature will be a very late season cyclone across the coast around the 20th of April near De Grey, between Port Hedland and 80 Mile Beach, tracking in through the Pilbara interior into South Australia, bringing early rains around Anzac Day to our South Australian farmers. So that's about a snapshot of the long range. But if you want to see the details of the long range forecast, actually go to the website and check out each update. So this is a bit more of a zoomed in look at FINA. So currently the system's category 1, estimated to intensify the next 24 hours to category 2. There might be some variability in that. The system's going to literally cross over an island and a peninsula and skirt the coast. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it stays a Cat 1 until it gets out into the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. And until then, we should just see some gusty winds. We've got winds here gusting up around 100 kilometres an hour, so nothing too severe. Where these winds spiral in and converge along the coast, so anywhere from Warruwi, sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, down through the Daly River to Wade, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce these words. That'll be your rainfall boundary. It won't be moving inland very far past that, except for some patchy showers and storms. So the intense rain will be along that coastal corridor there. as this system moves through the region. So this is the BOMS track map, bring it in near the Mitchell Plateau. This is the UK Met, takes it out as a weak low pressure system. The ECMWF, same thing, it tracks it out to the southwest as well. So I'm still sticking with what I expect around that Mitchell Plateau by the 25th, which is in line with the BOMS projections as well. So I will stick by that one for the meaning purpose of this update. So if we scroll through this simulation here, as this system impacts the Cobourg Peninsula, you'll see that the strongest winds are to the northwest, and that's due to this interaction with land here. And still winds are only gusting up around 100 k's. So it's a marginal Cat 1, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if it's even weaker. This model shows the system intensifying. I don't think the models are taking into account this land interaction here. It's sort of not really possible for it to do what it's doing here. So I would use a bit of caution on these high-end Category 3+ systems moving through this region. Highly unlikely. I don't know what's going on with my mouse. Into Saturday, the system moves through towards the Diemen Gulf, towards the top end, the Darwin region. Again, these winds seem well over simulated to me. I would be taking these with a grain of salt and just be focusing on rainfall. Pretty much where these strong wind boundaries are, this is where your heaviest rain will be if you follow the track of this low pressure system. And notice too, the lows almost onshore, if not onshore as well. So it's sort of, it's not possible for it to do what it's being simulated to do, in my opinion. Then moving into Sunday the 23rd, the system moves offshore towards the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. And this is when intensification can happen because there's really nothing stopping it. It's just over open water. And this little pocket here, there's plenty of moisture, plenty of heat, low wind shear. So this is where the system would be in its most prime location for intensification. So this is showing it's going to move up to a Category 2 by Sunday, moving up to a Category 3 by Monday. So this is the peak energy period by the 24th. Energy period peaks on the 24th. That's when we get the strongest part of the system. It could be a Category 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not. The only variability is because it's so small, it can fluctuate in strength, on the flip of a coin. If we get a high energy period particle injection from external areas like the sun or cosmic rays, that's what we need to see. And I'm not seeing those in the computer models of any short-term coronal mass ejection events. The major one that's shooting X flares, it's on the backside of the sun at the moment, so it won't be having any direct impact on Earth. So, yeah, that system, just as quickly as it intensifies, breaks down by the 24th, moving onshore near that Mitchell Plateau by the 25th. And that's all she wrote. So I would be expecting sort of more so this intensity here, winds gusting around 130. So Cat 2 would probably be my estimate, especially moving over the top end here through the Darwin Daly region. I wouldn't expect any more than a Cat 1, just purely due to the land interactions there. So that's about all the system has to offer. It's very small, very fast moving, not a lot of moisture within it, not moving onshore to any great extent either. So that sums it up.